witch trials were some of the most famous witch trials in English history. They took place in 1612 around the area of Pendle Hill in northwest England. Here are some interesting facts about them. 12 people were accused of witchcraft, most from two rival families, the Demdikes and the Chattoxes. The trials happened during the reign of King James I, who had a strong fear of witchcraft and even wrote a book about it called Demonology. 10 of the accused were found guilty and executed by hanging at Lancaster Castle. Only one of the accused died in prison before the trial began. A young girl named Jeanette Device became a key witness. She testified against members of her own family, which was shocking at the time. Unlike many older witch legends, there are detailed written records of the Pendle trials. A count clerk named Thomas Potts published an account in 1613 called The Wonderful Discovery of Witches in the County of Lancaster. Many accusations began after a travelling peddler suddenly became ill after an argument with a local woman named Alison Device. People believe she had cursed him. The accused was said to use familiar spirits, animal-like companions believed to help witches perform magic. Trials took place during a period of fear, poverty, disease and superstition, when many people genuinely believed witches could harm others. Today, the Pendle story has become part of Lancashire folklore. There are ghost walks, museums, and trails connected to the history around Pendle Hill. One eerie detail people often remember is that the accused were marched many miles to Lancaster Castle, kept in dark underground cells before the trial. Some of those prison areas can still be visited today. The Black Thread of Pendle. The wind screamed across Pendle Hill like something alive. Even 20 years after the Pendle witch trials, people still lock their doors before sunset. Children still whisper the names of the witches as dares, and no one, not even the drunkest men in the alehouses, walk the hill paths after dark, because sometimes they said something walked there first, something watching, something waiting. In the village of Barrowford lived a young woman named Elspeth Device. Most people avoided saying her surname aloud. Device. The bloodline of witches. Her grandmother had swung from the gallows at Lancaster Castle. Her mother had died in the freezing prison cells beneath it. The village had taken everything from her family, their cottage, their land, even their names. And still the villagers spat when Elspeth passed. Still they crossed themselves. Still they whispered witch. But Elspeth had learned something important growing up alone beneath the shadow of Pendle Hill. Hatred rots people from the inside, and rotting things are easy to break. It began with the disappearance of Matthew Crowther. He was the son of a magistrate who had condemned Elspeth's grandmother years before. Matthew vanished one fog-heavy evening after boasting in the tavern that he would spend the night atop Pendle Hill to prove the witches were dead. By morning, only his horse returned. Its eyes were white with terror. Tied around its neck was a strip of black cloth stitched with tiny red symbols, the same symbols once found carved into the prison walls at Lancaster. That night the louder screaming. Not one voice, dozens. Men rushed outside carrying lanterns. Women clutched children to their chests. The screams came from the Crowther house. When they burst through the door, they found Matthew's father standing in the hallway, trembling violently. "Something's upstairs," he whispered. The men climbed together. Step, creak, step, creak. Every candle in the house suddenly blew out. Darkness swallowed them whole. Then, thud. Something heavy landed behind them. One man turned his lantern. Matthew stood at the end of the corridor, or what used to be Matthew. His skin hung pale and dripping with rainwater. Mud filled his mouth. His neck bent at an impossible angle. And he was smiling. The lantern shattered as the men fled. Behind them came wet footsteps, slow, deliberate, following. The next morning, Matthew was gone again, but his father was not. They found him hanging upside down from the church bell tower. His eyes had been sewn shut with black thread. Panic spread through the village like plague. People nailed horseshoes above doors. They burned herbs. They carried iron nails in their pockets. And every whisper led back to Elspeth Device. She's finishing what her family started. She's made a pact. She's calling the dead back. 3 men decided to deal with her themselves. That same night, they marched to her cottage carrying axes and rope. Rain hammered the hills. Thunder rolled overhead. When they reached the cottage, the door stood open. Inside, candles burned low, but Elspeth was nowhere. Only a spinning wheel turning slowly by itself. Creak, creak. Search the house, one man said. Another step toward the cellar door. The second he touched it. Bang! The door exploded open upward. A flock of black birds burst from beneath the floorboards, shrieking violently. The men stumbled back, screaming, and from the darkness below came a woman's voice. "You should have left the dead buried." Then silence. One man ran instantly. The other 2 forced themselves downstairs. The cellar smelled of wet earth and blood. Their lantern light shook. At first it looked empty. Then they noticed the figures standing against the walls. Dozens of them. People. Motionless. Faces hidden beneath filthy sackcloth. One of the men reached forward with trembling fingers and pulled a sack away. Gagged, it was not a person, only bundles of sticks tied together with human hair. But behind them, something moved. A tall shape unfolded itself from the shadows with a crack of bones. Its limbs were too long. Its fingers dragged across the dirt floor, and where its face should have been was only darkness. The lantern went out. Their screams echoed across the hill. Only one man returned home. He never spoke again. He spent the rest of his life staring at corners, muttering that something stood there waiting for him whenever the room became dark. The villagers turned on Elspeth fully after that. They gathered torches, ropes, knives, just as they had done years earlier to her family. The mob climbed Pendle Hill during the dead of night, following the faint glow summit stood the ruins of an old stone hut. Elspeth waited beside a burning pyre. The wind whipped her black cloak wildly around her. "You murdered innocent people," shouted the vicar. "You cursed this village," yelled another. Elspeth said nothing for a long moment. Then she smiled sadly. "No," she whispered, "you did." The ground beneath them suddenly trembled. One of the villagers screamed as a hand burst from the soil beside him. Rotting fingers clawed upward from the earth. Then another hand, another. The dead rose around them, not zombies, not monsters, but pale figures with hollow eyes and hanging nooses around their necks. The executed witches of Pendle. The mob broke instantly. People ran blindly into the fog, and something in the mist began hunting them. A woman vanished beside Elspeth with a sudden crunch. A man's scream cut off mid-breath. Shapes moved between the trees impossibly fast. Closer, closer. A terrified boy looked behind him and saw Matthew Crowther standing inches from his face, his jaw suddenly unhinged far too wide. The boy screamed. Darkness swallowed him. By dawn, the hill was silent. Only ashes remained beside the ruined hut. Elspeth Device had vanished. Some claimed she threw herself into the fire. Others swore they saw her walking into the mist beside the dead. But the strangest thing came later, years later. When travellers passed through Pendle at night, they sometimes heard footsteps following